Good morning and welcome to our August user group. We are so excited. We have special guests joining us today. We have our partners, CGI, we have Mark Orlando, and I am just going to ask him to put his camera back on. I apologize. And go ahead, wave, Mark, say hello. And we have John Kapler, who's also part of the CGI transition team, and he's going to be joining. So Mark is going to give us some live demo today, which I think is piqued everyone's interest, and that has grown us in popularity today since we have so many that have joined. If you're a first timer, welcome. We are so glad to have you part of our user group. As I previously mentioned, we are going to use our chat feature for just general comment, and then we have that designated Q&A feature that we're going to use for your questions, and we're going to field those during the end of the webinar when we get to that portion of today's session. So I'm going to go ahead and without further ado, turn it over to Shane so he can get us kicked off for today.
Great. Thank you, Kim. Good morning, everyone. Again, delighted that everybody's here. Really excited to get to the live demos. I do have some things I want to talk about real quick from a training perspective, but I know I'm in the way of you guys actually seeing a live demonstration of some transactions. So I'm going to try to get out of the way really quick, but I wanted to share what I felt like was some really important information for you guys. So let me move on. Agenda today. Some things we're going to get through. Software development lifecycle update, just so you can kind of get a feel for an update from that perspective. Introduce to a lot of you the new approach to eVA training and some things that we're going to be doing. That leads into learning as a journey. And that's kind of that new approach and how that's going to work for you, as well as next steps for training and testing. I think we have the questions kind of out of place. I want to go right to the live demo. And then at the end, if we have time for questions, we will take them at the end. But again, I want to stay out of your way from a live demo perspective. I want to get to that as quickly as possible. So moving right along into the software development lifecycle, and just wanted to give you guys a quick update so you can see a feel for this. If you've been with us on user group meetings, particularly going back to January, February, you'd seen some timelines, some dates, like where we're at, what we're doing. I haven't really given you that update in a while, and I wanted you to get a feel for this. But the dates, what term do we want to use? They're squishy, they're malleable, they're moving targets. Now, the only target we know that's not moving is our ability to cut over at the end of the year, because that's got to happen. But there's a lot going on at the same time, and a lot of things happening, and then a lot of overlap is happening. So I hope this gives you a feel for all the different activities that are going on in the project. And just at a little higher level overview. So kind of rolling around our circle here at the top, the January-March timeframe, we were definitely in the planning phase, right? That's really behind us at this point. That's the requirements gathering, prioritization, getting the contract awarded, quite honestly, building out our project plan and building out some timelines. And again, those timelines are moving around a lot, right? Depending on what we're getting done, what's taking it a little longer, or what we're speeding up on. Right now, the time frame we're in really started back in March. It's going to run us through August, and you're going to see in a minute it's going to continue really to the end of the implementation and even further. We're in the development stage, right? Functional and architectural designs, the interface and integration stuff is getting worked on from a design perspective, additional planning and preparation, but for testing, and then planning and preparation for training and deployment as well. And that's really the phase we're in right now. So if you truly want to think about what we're doing, we've kind of got most of our planning behind us at a very high macro level. We're in development phase with still some planning going on for training and testing in particular, as well as deployment. And then as we shift to the end of the month and go into September and then through December, really what's our focus here? And what's an impact to you guys? Testing and training, testing and training. And when I talk about testing, that's user acceptance testing, right? That's not only going to impact DGS and the folks I work with, but a lot of you guys as well who are going to participate with us as external testers, and then hopefully getting everybody trained, right? Pushing you all through some sort of training program, which we'll get into more details in just a minute. Development also continuing in that time frame. January 1st, 2022, I have that marked. That could move earlier into December, depending on how we do. I think we've kind of got a target for cutover or turning the new system on, whatever you want to call it. Could run as early as December 10th. It could absolutely has to happen January 1st. So that's the date you see here. That'd be go live, your customer care team being there, an expanded support team that we're going to put together for you at DGS and DPS, and then video and other training available 24/7, right? So the training that you're going to do the transition, it's not going away. And I'm going to share that exciting news with you here in just a second. And then January, for the next 20 years, we're going to maintain the system. CGI is going to be with us. We're going to make improvements. We're going to introduce new functionality and continue to gather those requirements for anything we do in the future, right? So this is not shift, lift, dump, and leave. This is much like we've been doing. You might hear the term managed services. This is a long-term relationship. So for continuous improvement and continuing to tweak and customize and roll out functionality, just we're here with you is kind of the point. So that's just a very quick update on where we are with the software development lifecycle and where we are with the transition project in general. I want to shift to training and start to get your mind about how training going to work. And that shifts into a slide where we talk about training needs by role and job function, and then what we feel like the impact is. Now, I'm not going to stay on this slide very long, but this is some analysis that has been done. That left-hand column, the role job function, and remember that this is recorded. You can go look at this later. If you'd like to look at this chart, there's actually going to be a user training needs fact sheet coming out within the next 2 weeks, next couple of weeks, where you'll see this chart again. But the concept here, looking at the role job function within eVA, and then the different modules and functions and how they impact. So that's some of the analysis that we've done as we've started to put together this training program. Well, let's think about all the different roles and job functions, and then let's look across all the modules and functionality within the eVA program. And then what are your impacts? And I know the coloring may not be too great for you guys, but the kind of light green is like a low impact. The light blue is moderate impact, and dark blue is a very high impact. So you get an idea here. If you look down 5 lines down, you see a line for requisitioner. That's a role, right? I'm a requisitioner. I do purchasing. And then you go over to our purchase to pay module. Obviously, that's a high impact for a requisitioner. So that's a consideration when you put the training program together. The purchase to pay module that would be used by a requisitioner, it's a very high impact to them from a training need and getting them to learn that new system. So that kind of mentality went in to the word that I like that's being used, the modernization of our training program. So that takes me to our next slide. We really feel like we're modernizing eVA, right? We're improving on a great product. We're evolving, whatever word you want to use. But eVA modernization relates to training modernization as well, and a totally new way to do this. And really, I love this bullet point. A state-of-the-art system deserves state-of-the-art training. And we really feel like that's the program we're going to put together. And that's what I'm introducing to you guys today, learning as a journey. So going back to that slide you just looked at with like the roles and the job areas and the impacts, it's going to focus on that. And then putting together those role-specific learning journeys or curriculum based on the unique needs of those roles, right? So it's not a one size fits all. It's looking at an individual user and all the different functions that they may serve, and then tying that together with a specific journey, a specific set of curriculum to get them up to speed on this eVA modernization and for this transition. So streamlined training based on role-based needs and filtering out less critical information, right? So, and then the different modualities, the different modules we want to give you to get there. It's not all, well, I'm going into a classroom for 8 hours, or I'm going into a classroom for 3 straight days. And even though the only thing I do in eVA is approve requisitions, I'm going to hear about quick quote, I'm going to hear about sourcing, I'm going to hear about catalog shopping, but all I do is approve. That's not the way it's going to work. It's going to be very unique and specific to what you do and the roles you have within an organization. And we're delivering that through quick guides and infographics, videos, e-learning, hands-on simulations. We're not removing the human element. There are virtual, because that's a great way to reach a lot of you, but live instructor-led training. So you have a live person there, and then a feedback and assessment loop, right? So very excited about that. And again, we are really excited about this program. Digging into this a little further to think about learning as a journey and to kind of set you up for where we are, overall and where we want to take you. We're really in the awareness and knowledge phase right now, right? If you're looking at this slide, what's awareness and knowledge? We're doing some webinars. We're doing some overview videos. We're beginning to build your knowledge. You're going to see your first live demonstration today. Some infographics are going to start coming out over the next several weeks and months to back up some of the things we're talking about, to talk about training and talk about some other concepts that we're having. We will move in the September, October timeframe into the actual, when we transition into interactive training. That's the e-learning, the simulations, virtual instructor-led training, all right? A lot of this you build through that curriculum, through the e-learning and the hands-on simulations and all the things you're doing. And at the end, you're doing the virtual instructor-led training. And then checking your understanding, getting your users or you yourself through that training, allowing you then to do an assessment. Did it help you get through you needed to do? Did you learn? And then having a feedback loop to make improvements to the training program if we're not meeting your needs or not enough people are doing well in their assessments. This ability to adjust the training on the fly to make it better so that you, your end users, your staff get a better understanding of eVA so that you're ready on day one to start using the system that we're going to transition to there in December and into January. And then the back end of that, post go live, support and troubleshooting. You got your customer care team already mentioned. We're going to set up some additional support with some office hours. You got your account execs there to help you as well. But a lot of staff here at DGS and DPS is going to be there to help you. And then reminders and sustainment, quick reference guides, things to help you day to day for the transactions that you need to cut. And then this training program, this curriculum, it stays with us. It's not going away. So if you bring on a new employee, if you promote, let's say you start as a requisitioner and then you get a promotion and you're going to do complex sourcing, you're going to start issuing RFPs. You can go take that journey. You can go take that curriculum and it's going to be there for you. So really a complete change on the way that we do training, which quite honestly, guys, it's been user guides, a couple quick guides, and a lot of in-person instruction. This is just a different approach. It's there for you. It's on demand. It's self-guided with support at the end where you still have that human element. And we're not going to remove the people that support you. But it's just a completely different approach. So we're excited about that. Let me show you real quick just the concept of a draft learning journey. This is for a requisitioner. Again, it kind of feels like the journey I just showed you, but you get the idea. You get an introduction, maybe some videos welcoming you to eVA. Then you get started, maybe some background things. Maybe there's some e-learning stuff to go through basic preferences in the system. Then you actually learn how to do requisitions, orders. You do some key takeaway stuff. There's instructor-led training in that next step. Then you move forward to looking at catalogs and how we do catalog shopping. And then the very back end of that, some supplier management. And that's all around understanding the supplier side, getting suppliers entered into the system. That concept, we use it as state entered vendors, kind of the support of that, right? That time frame, that learning journey, 6.5 hours to get through all of that, right? That really, we think, when you look at what we're doing now and all the concepts you would pick up, potentially lowers your overall commitment as well for an individual user to what they have to get through to get trained on the system. So very, very excited about that. And wrap up, next steps. You're like, great, Shane, this sounds exciting. Haven't seen anything yet. What's going to happen to me? The next 2 weeks, trainers are getting briefed, both internally here to DPS, and externally. We're doing briefings. We're going to launch some more frequent email updates. You guys, as buyer user group participants, are going to be on that mailing list. You're going to get added to that distribution. You're going to start getting a lot of updates on a more regular basis as we march closer to transition, so that we're keeping you up to date and keeping you informed of what's going on. In September, Train the Trainer begins. So either the individuals here at DPS, or the individuals at your own organization, should you have a training organization, that's going to start up, and we're going to start getting your trainers trained on what they have to do, and then testing starting up at the end of the month. So we're going to start UAT testing. If you're interested in that, there's going to be some outreach around that so you can get signed up. In October, available raw training assets are starting to come. Train the Trainer is going to keep going. End user training begins. Testing continues. November, January, ongoing user training, train the trainer as needed, deployment. So those are the next steps. That's how you're going to be impacted. So I'm done. I need to get out of here. I hope I didn't take a ton of time, because I am delighted. And that says questions or feedback. But you know what? I'm going to stop sharing. We're not going to do questions right now, because I am very, very excited to turn things over to Mark Orlando and his crew at CGI. And he's going to give you some live demonstrations of real transactions starting right now. Mark, so excited to have you today. Take it away, man.
Thank you, Shane. First order of business. Let me make sure I'm sharing correctly. Let me share. All right, each of you should be seeing, Shane or Kim or somebody give me a nod that you guys are seeing what appears to be a login page.
Yes, yes.
It says, welcome to the procurement portal.
There you
Is
go.
that correct?
Looks good.
All right.
Hey, John, go ahead and throw your camera on real quick. So for those of you who don't know us, my name is Mark Orlando. I'm essentially Shane's counterpart with CGI. I've been connected to the eVA program for some way, some shape since I think 2004, maybe even 2003. I currently serve as a project manager, but also with fairly deep knowledge of procurement processes. And then I brought along John Kapler. John, most of you know John from the forum, but John, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is John Kapler. I've been with the program since 2010, first job out of college, so stuck around for a while. A lot of P2P work. I've been kind of all over the place for a lot of years, so I'm sure I've worked with a lot of you and will continue to work as we move forward.
All right, so the panelists, as we go through this and people have questions, if you guys need me to stop on something, please let me know, because I won't be watching the chat or the Q&A as we go. Also expect I may ask you to chime in and add some color as we go. Kim, it looks like we have about a half hour. Is that correct?
Until the top of the hour, and then we do have an extra 15 minutes we built into today's session so that we'll run until 11:15 to be able to answer some questions. So I will come back on and let you know when we get close. So take it
Okay.
away, and we'll address any Q&A at the end of when you get through the walkthrough.
Perfect. All right, thank you. So there's a couple of things we'll do today. I'm gonna go ahead and just sign in. We're gonna tour you through one of our test regions. So if you see some things that look funny from a data perspective, or some errors pop up, just bear with me. We know it's a test region. It's not the final production region, and it's not intended to be. There's a couple of key things that we want to do today. Obviously, we're not going to show you the whole system, all the capabilities. We're not going to get into very, down some wormholes. But the biggest thing we want and takeaways we're looking for today is to get you a familiarity with what the solution actually looks like, as well as allow you to see some and hopefully draw some familiarity to some of the terms, processes, fields that we're going to use as we go through this, because we want you to kind of see, and I think we have spent a lot of time working with the team to make sure, the transition, yes, it's a new platform, but a lot of the business processes will be fairly similar, and you'll start to see some familiarity amongst things to allow you to transition from old to new. Okay. So I just logged in. I'm not going to spend any time working about how a login works. What you're looking at, let's get ourselves, the roadmap. Let's see where we are. Typical of most solutions, and I think typical in current eVA as well. The top navigation here, or the top panel, if you will, is your navigation menu. This menu is going to get you everywhere in the solution you need to go. It is organized by our what we call our verticals, or our subject matter areas. So suppliers, I'm not gonna go through each one of those, but suppliers, where you register suppliers, look up suppliers, and view information about suppliers. I'm getting some feedback. Is that just because I have my mic too high? I'll just turn it down. Sourcing, under sourcing menu, you see a very long menu. This may be shortened when we go to production, but this sourcing really is the RFPs, the IFBs, the quick quotes, the sourcing events that we typically do now, whether they're VBO, advantage solicitations, or quick quotes. Now we have sourcing in one spot. So as we talk about key areas moving forward, I think that's one of the key differences between the current solution and new. Now we have one sourcing tool. Within that sourcing tool, we can accommodate the various types of sourcing events. No longer do we have to go to 3 different solutions or 3 different tools to do sourcing. Contracts, again, in one spot here. Again, we're talking, this is a key difference between the current eVA solution and the new solution, is the idea that no matter what you're doing in your business process, whether it's purchasing, contracts, sourcing, supplier management, and you can even see their analytics and some other things, it's all within this solution. Right. I think some of you who've been around eVA for a while know that if I want to do a sourcing event, I now can go to quick quote, or to what we call advantage, sourcing and contracting, or I go to VBO. Right. So now we have one spot, and contracts are managed inside of sourcing and contracting, not inside the same spot where you do requisitioning. So now it's one continuous platform. And that's really a really nice feature that we're going to have going forward. And as we go through today's demo, you will see how information flows across these various, what I call verticals, across these various solution areas seamlessly, without integration. So for those of you who deal with even now, you no longer have to worry about, did your quick quote make it to email? Did your sourcing event or your contract become a catalog? Did you get your PO out of sourcing and contracting over to the email? Those things go away because it is all one solution. That's why you see these various areas here at the top. So contracts, you can manage all your work around contracts will be in this area. Shopping and procurement. Shopping is catalog shopping. So I'm just going to go out and I'm just going to shop and look for things. And the demo will cover some of that today. Procurement is around requisitioning, the kind of the off contract, off catalog buying. Those two things really go hand in hand with each other. And I'll show you how that kind of works. Analytics is an inbound reporting engine. Now this is a little bit of a 50-50 area. We are still going to use all of our existing Logi reports and reports that are out there. We will use this solution over time. And most of you won't see this. I'm an administrator, so you won't see this analytics right away. Over time, we'll build and start to use more of this platform. I think that's also a key element that Shane and Lisa probably have talked to before, is over time, we will continue to use more of this platform than we are at day one. These other tabs are for administrators, and you can ignore those for now. Okay. So I'm going to so top navigation kind of will get us where we're headed. Okay. I'm not going to touch on every single thing up here, but there is a nice feature here as well. It's called a system search. So if I want to look for, oops, if I can spell. So I know search for IBM, but if I look for sandblasting, I can see now what it's doing is looking across this entire suite, this entire solution. And it tells me there's a sourcing project out there. So somebody's doing an IFB or RFP that had sandblasting. Because I'm an administrator, I get access to everybody. There's also a supplier dealing with sandblasting and a requisition for sandblasting. You can see that I did this one earlier today. Nice search feature. Again, I think it highlights that idea of that single platform for everyone. So if you're not sure what you're looking for, or not sure when you started your procurement, or not when you want to look up a contract, you don't have to particularly know where to go find it. You can use this, what we call a site search, to start looking for those things, and then you have access to them with a click. Okay. The other part of this navigation I just wanted to highlight here is what you see and refer to as the home page. I logged in. This one says the administrator homepage. I'm going to switch to one that probably looks a little more familiar. So what I did here, I added some favorites. So you can save any page you want as a favorite or transaction. I went ahead and saved this employee homepage for demonstration purposes for you guys as a favorite for me. Get rid of that message. This is just loading up some views. So this is a more typical looking, if you were just a requisitioner or a buyer, a shopper coming into the solution, this is a little more typical view of what your landing page may look like. The important part of this is, yes, we can configure these landing pages. We will configure them out of the box and standardize them just like this at day 0 at go live. And then we will grow with you over time as we recognize needs, wants, and desires for what makes them more efficient and more effective information at your fingertips. These things can be modified, but at the beginning, they will look fairly standard across all organizations and allow us to gain feedback before we go changing. But these are various things you can say. So what I have here is I can search products. So if I'm looking for computers or anything else, I can do my catalog search right from here. I can message people within the solution if I want. I can also check on my orders. So I got an order status list here, as well as my to-do list. My to-do list being my areas where I have approvals that are pending my actions. Okay. Just a basic part of the top navigation usually when you log in, and then there's usually a home page associated with your account. And we touched on the favorites feature. You can also have a history feature as well. If I want to just show real quick, in general, no matter where you are in these areas, when you go, let's say I'm going to go to requisition, browse requisitions. They have what concept of a browse screen. So browse screen is a listing. Okay. And then typically within each one of these listings, you can do any kind of keyword searching you want. So again, I'll use my sandblasting as type ahead feature. Allow you to quickly search and find what you're looking for and not have to know every single number and every single thing. It's also indexed fairly well. And ability to then, if you have to, go into a refined search, which has more areas that you can search to find what you're looking for. So this is what they call, or what will be referred to as a browse screen, just a listing of your transactions where you can search and find them. Once you find them, you'll see this repeated over and over. You'll see a pencil icon. I think that's should be pretty self-explanatory. We talk about icons though. Pencil is edit, right? Open, look at it, edit. You can also just click on any of these hyperlinks and it'll take you right to the transaction as well. So I'm going to just go ahead and open one just to show you in general the way transactions, if you will, requisitions, POs, contracts are all kind of laid out in a very similar manner. So I just want to show you one before we get into the demo. So when you look at what I consider to be a transaction, there are a couple key areas of note. I'm going to just expand this left-hand side. I think this looks fairly similar to what you would see in most solutions. Across top, you're going to get the name of the transaction and the number. Then you have your action bar across the top. Yes, they are color coded. We won't get into what the color codes mean, but you'll see your typical actions that are available to you in the action bar. The left-hand side will be your steps available in the process. So when I move from the requisition step to the approval step, it'll change the detailed view here, as well as to the P card step. It changes what I see. And then in the middle frame, if you will, is the details of the transaction. Okay, so fairly standard, fairly typical. You will see this repeat itself, whether you're doing a requisition, what I'm looking at here, or you're doing a contract, or you're doing a sourcing event. So it's a fairly simple and easily trainable UI, because all the things are laid out in a very similar way. So requisition, if you learn where the action buttons are in a requisition and how the steps go in a requisition, you've now learned how it works for a solicitation, for a contract, for adding a supplier, whatever you have to do, and whatever you have to do, everything looks and feels the same way. So training on the solution should not be as difficult, because everything should look and feel very similar. So that's really it from a general navigation. The top navigation will get you to the actions you want. Transactions are laid out very similar within each area. You have listings or browse pages, which you can search on to get to the details. So not too complex and not too hard. So let me take you through I'm going to run a typical scenario here. I'm actually just going to start back at my home page. I just want to run through a transaction where I need to buy something. And I'll show you kind of how we go from wanting to buy something and then progress through the system. Okay. So in this case, I said, hey, I wanted to buy sandblasters. I don't know why I picked sandblasting equipment today, but I did. So what it's doing here is it's searching the catalog. Right. So I didn't have to tell it to do anything. I mean, I could have gone other ways, but it's just going ahead and look. Now this is our test system, so it's a little bit slow. It won't be this slow as it goes, but that's okay. But you get the idea. So I searched the catalog. I did not find anything for sandblasting. So I'm going to go ahead and create a non-catalog item for sandblasting. Okay. And here I'll give it a description. I want 5 sandblasters. My commodity code. Know the number, but I just start typing a name. There it is. What you saw there is that NNGP set we currently use. You will see it again. Delivery date. I don't know a supplier, right? I didn't find a supplier at this point, so I'm just going to go ahead and save this. So there was no existing catalog, no existing contract. Give it a unit price. I want to pay $2,000. So what you see here is just the way errors are handled in the solution. It'll tell you where you need to go, which thing's missing. Save that. There. Go back to my cart because I accidentally closed my cart. So in my shopping cart now I have my sandblasting, and now I go over to my requisition. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just delete one of these because I don't want to. I did one earlier. So out of my cart, what you see now is I left my cart, and now I'm into very familiar and should be familiar looking to those who use eVA now. I'm into a requisition. So very simply, I moved. I didn't do anything. You guys saw me give maybe 5 or 6 different fields. I wanted sandblasters. I put a commodity code on there. And boom, I have a requisition that is, almost complete for me. Now, if I look at this category, we talked about familiarity amongst fields and look and feel from the transition from eVA to eVA solution. So on your requisition, you will see some fields that you should expect and know. PO category, requester, procurement transaction type are all our standard fields that are today, as well as our organization. And you can see in this case, I want to buy my product here. This one doesn't have an item description. I want to add it. I want to go look. So this was my cart, my sandblaster. So I'm just going to give this a description here. So that we talked about some key things: familiarity with process and terminology. I think this is where we really get into some terminology in PO category. So I didn't do too many things. So at this point, I could submit this for approval. And we talked about before, I showed you guys on, the way the left hand, the way that things work. I don't want to submit for approval because I don't have a supplier. So in this case, I'm going to know that I need to go execute a sourcing event. In this case, I'm going to do a quick quote. So I get a choice here. These choices, Lisa and team will go through before, but essentially quick quote is a quick quote like you would do today. Request for proposal or an invitation for bid. I think those terms will change when you see it for live, but essentially it's an IFB model or an RFP model, if you will. In this case, I'm going to choose a sourcing type of quick quote. It went ahead and copied in the commodity I wanted. It knew what organization is bringing for my line item. So the speed of which I can create this sourcing project from an end user's request is greatly improved from where we stand today. So what I just did was launch into what they consider to be and what is called a sourcing project. Sourcing project, Kim helped me with terminology here. I think we also talk about procurement folders, talk about solicitation. So this is the source to contract portion of it. So I left the requisition and now I'm going to run a quick quote. Okay. Whether you're running a quick quote or doing a complex RFP or doing a line item, goods and services for an IFB, they all land within these sourcing projects and are all very familiar to each other. So if you are a sourcing user, you'll have a lot of commonality as you switch between doing a quick quote or an IFB and RFP. They will look and feel very similar. They'll all have this same left-hand navigation idea and various parts of the mill. So I'm going to go a little faster here to get through this quick quote and get to the parts we have to do and just do a quick quote. So I'm going to go to my suppliers. I want to make it go to supplier. This supplier list here in our demo is filtering automatically based on the commodity code that was on the sourcing event. So 3M, Paper Ink, and Wayne Services have registered to provide services as a sandblaster or can provide sandblasting tools. When we do go live in this will automatically load forth, but it does not here in our test region. And now I'm actually going to prepare my solicitation. So the terminology wise, it does say prepare RFX. RFX is what the terminology is for solicitation. I think that's something we will learn. So now I'm on my solicitation header. Those that use VBO or quick quote or sourcing contract now, this should look pretty familiar from a fields standpoint for what you have to fill in. So I'll leave my name as it is, my procurement transaction type. I'll say it's equipment, non-technology. Work location, I'll say Prince William County Schools. Various locations. That's my kid's school district. End date, I'm going to say I want to end it in, let's say, 14 days. So a very simple little tool here. I can just click the +14. And now I'm done. I'm not doing it for, it's not high risk. I'm not doing it for another public entity. Not going to do a public bid opening or pre-bid conference. So I'm going to just save my quick quote header here. And John, can you process that cube for me? You don't have to answer. It's fine. So from the header standpoint, this looks very familiar to what you should expect and see from a VBO user perspective. You know, people are going to transition out of that, as well as source to contract and quick quote. Okay. I'll just touch real quickly here on advanced options. There are some advanced options you can do, turn on and off as a sourcing professional on each one of your solicitations. In this case, I'm going to leave them as they are. Actually, I'll add the post in public portal just so I can make sure it's there. These options are dynamic and do change as we go through different kinds of things, but I just wanted to show that there are options that you can do, as well as the set aside. I think that, that we currently use will look and feel very similar to what it does today. So in this case, I'll just say I want to make it a set aside for a small business, give small business priority. All that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and just click my save. Now, when you're inside of the solicitation, there are more elements than just one single just setup. You can see here we have other tabs. So items, publicly posted documents, notifications, and SWAM information. So what we end up doing within these transactions when we have a large set of data is we use tabs. Okay, so line items are line items. Where did this come from? From the requisition that I started. I said I created the sourcing event, it copied forward the requisition and the line items I needed. I can add additional ones if I need to, but in this case, sandblasting is perfect. Publicly posted documents, you see I have nothing on here. I skipped over one thing. There's a library concept within sourcing and within the solution allows you to use existing documents. So if I go ahead and just look to attach an existing document, I've already preloaded in here and it's preloaded into the library, the general terms and conditions and the eVA quick quote standard terms and conditions. So to add those two here into my sourcing project, and we have it. So these things can be administered as well as down the road as organizations have other standard documents they want to make available to their users. Those also can be put into the library. It gives a very good and easy way for users to add those things to their transactions, as well as to maintain them and put new files out there as we go. Get a little check before I'm going to go ahead and publish this to make sure I got a supplier list on there. It's the same list I had higher used. And I just want to double check before I go ahead and publish this. I want to go ahead and look to see what does this look like to a supplier. So the feature here, I can see it's in my draft. I can go ahead and click the little hourglass here, and it's going to allow me to take a tour, if you will, and essentially fill out a response just like you were a supplier. So see it exactly like the supplier will see it as they're filling out their electronic response. And you could even go so far as to test it, but I'm not going to, but this is the exact screen that the suppliers see. So it's a preview. They haven't seen anything yet. So I can see the overview of my solicitation, make sure I don't have any spelling errors, make sure I got my attachments on here that I wanted to see. That looks good. My closing date looks good. History, if there's any versions that went through this, in this case, there is not. Response information. So this is what the supplier would have to fill in. It's going to give a validity date, description, and attachment. That looks fine to me. I'm going to skip down to items. So these are the items that he has to reply to. You can see here, I got my sandblasters. I got 10 each. So it gives you a nice confirmation as the buyer to make sure that one, you're double checking that you have everything you need, and to help you understand exactly what a supplier will go through when they're going to do the response. Get ahead of it to make sure you don't have errors. You don't have to do unnecessary amendments and questions and dealing with those things, to make sure you are prepared and everything looks good. So it's a very valuable feature. And we will push people to make sure we're using that feature as we go. The last element on here is this SWAM tab. So we know we're going to notify these suppliers. We also embedded a analytics view of, if you publish this to those 3 suppliers, what are the SWAM statistics associated with the suppliers on your solicitation? So you can see very quickly, because I don't have much time, I was going to invite 3 people. 2 of those people are SWAM certified, and it gives you a percentage of those, 66%, right? Obviously, with longer lists, this becomes very valuable. I know typically, some of the transactions end up with thousands of people on those supplier lists. So these summary statistics are very valuable to what you do. And these things can be downloaded and exported if we want to for further analysis. And it is a fully interactive. It's kind of nice. It's a fully interactive chart that I can deal with to get the quick overview. So I'm going to be certain. All right, I did this with a set aside. I have some SWAM suppliers that I'm engaging with. Okay. So thus far, all they really had to do for my quick quote was a couple of fields on the header. My line items came over it immediately. I confirmed what my attachments were going to be. I reviewed my SWAM statistics. I'm ready to publish. So I'm going to go ahead and publish. And what this will do is it sends it out like current eVA, where it's going to publish it for suppliers to see through the public portal, send notifications, and open it for bidding. So it's asking me, do you want to send notifications? Yes. Do you want to open it at the same time? Yes. So a couple of confirmation messages. Those confirmation messages are really around avoiding mistakes. If somebody hits the button by accident. So now you can see my solicitation changed its status from draft to open for bidding, right? So now it's out on the street. Suppliers can bid. Once that happens, you can monitor the activity, kind of like the lockbox and current functionality. You can monitor the activity for your solicitation through this RFX activity. So right now I see these 3 people have been emailed. They haven't logged in and they haven't really done any proposals yet, and they haven't declined a proposal, okay, or submitted a paper response. As time elapses, you will see more. In the interest of time, because we do not have much time left, I will just do a response so you can see what it looks like from 3M. We'll choose he did it today. Next. Price is going to be $1,900 a piece, and I can deliver it next Friday. Submit. So that was exactly what a supplier will have to do to respond. I just did it on behalf of them. This is exactly the same process as well. If you have paper bids that you need to enter for a supplier at some point in the process. So it's a very nice feature that whether you're doing a paper bid or supplier bidding, it's the exact same thing. You can see now that there's a bid. If there are multiple bids, there'll be multiple people here. In the interest of time, because we have 5 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and go back to my solicitation, which I said was going to close on 9/2. I'm going to auto close it or force close it. So we're going to jump ahead in time, and you can manually close a bidding event at any point in time. So this one, I'm manually closing it in advance of that, just to speed us through the process. Now that this is closed, I can go to my analyze and award step and choose my winners. So a lot of things going on here. I only have one. If I want to look at this proposal, I can view the proposal. There's also some areas that you can look at, some embedded scenarios. I'm not going to have time to get to those, but there's some scenarios the system runs for you, whether it be best price, best overall bid, best spread, best score. When you get into larger procurements, a lot of these are very helpful in giving you some decision analytics to help you. You don't have to follow the recommendation, but it'll provide some recommendations. So 3M was my supplier right now. I'm just going to go ahead and make my award decision to give it to them for speed. It's thinking. Hit save. I don't know if that came across on the, yeah, it didn't. So now that I chose him, it changed color. It's kind of hard to see on the presentation, but 3M is going to be my winner. Okay. To complete that full circle, remember we started with the requisition without having it. I now can go back. I've chosen 3M, and what I can do is update my requisition, is update prices, to bring forward my winner. So it says, okay, who do you want to bring forward? I only have one competitor, so sandblasting. So I'm updating that original requisition. With now I can go ahead and complete my order for sandblasters from 3M for this price. So what I ended up doing is I started with a sourcing event. I needed sandblasters. I had nobody to source it from. I ran a quick quote. I completed the quick quote. And at the end of the quick quote, it went back to that original purchase request and updated it with the information for who it's going to be. And now I can go ahead and submit this requisition to become an order to send to 3M to provide me the goods and services that I need, or the 10 sandblasters that I wanted. Now I'm just going to go ahead. Some of these things, obviously, I'm I'm an administrator, so I'm hopping through the approval chain on my own here. There's like a 4 or 5 step approvals on this requisition. I just
And
wanted to
while Mark is walking through these final steps, if I can just ask our panelists to please join us back, and we'll move into our Q&A in just a few moments.
Yep. So to recap there, what I end up in the end here is an order. So if I got my order out, it shipped to the supplier for the sandblasters. I think there's a couple of things, key elements there I mentioned before. Familiarity of some of the fields that you see, as well as, you see, I didn't leave a system or go anywhere else. I went from shopping to a quick quote, to a requisition, to my sourcing event, and then back to my requisition to get the order out the door. And I think that's a really going to be some key elements and some very good improvements to the business. Sorry for going so quickly, but I know we had a time constraint. So on to you, Kim.
All right, so if you would stop sharing your screen, we'll come back into our little gallery view, and then we will be able to go into our Q&A. So we have lots of questions. There's 20 that are not answered. There's 9 questions that we've already answered while we were going through the process. So if I could ask, we're going to just start kind of running down them. But panelists, we do have a couple of questions that are specific, that have kind of recurring theme here about adding vendors. Can you ad hoc non-registered vendors to solicitation notifications? Can you add a supplier who's not registered in eVA? You know, how do we add them? So can we address that? Or maybe businesses that want to be invited that aren't under that specific code. That's kind of lumped into multiple questions within that Q&A. I think it's a great place to start.
Do you want me to start with that, or Shane or Lisa?
Sure, yeah, go ahead and, you know, can
So,
you know,
yes is the answer to a lot of those. There's a lot of questions in there. So the idea there is the supplier list will automatically build like it does in current eVA based on the commodity codes. You certainly can continue to add other people, other suppliers that exist in the system to that. You can also, for the ad hoc example, you can also put somebody on there, and what the system will do will invite them to register. So that is another capability. And then the last one there is, if a supplier is not, you know, doesn't get on the list, or you don't add them to the list, or they don't manually get on there, there still is the capability of, if Lisa's company, you know, wants to reply and she's not on the list, she can start her response and that automatically adds her to the list. So I think it covers all of those features. You know, it's just a matter of how you get there.
so an additional interesting question, and I'm just kind of popping around a little bit, is can you select multiple set-asides or only one? Because right now it's only one, right? I'm not sure the need.
So I'll kind of jump in and answer that a little bit too. Current APS, I'm curious if this is coming from a local government or higher ed. APSPM, we only have one set aside that we currently do at a time. You either set aside for micro or you set aside for small. And micro is a subset of small, so they obviously still fall into that. So I kind of would have a follow-up question. Is this a need coming from a local government or a higher ed? Because this isn't something that I don't think we've had asked before in our current system, even because our current system, you set aside to one SWAM category.
Yep, perfect. Thank you so much, Lisa. And then just to kind of circle back to the beginning, we did have interest, we've had interest in our different user groups and some of the things we've walked through with highlights in the platform about our search capabilities. So solicitation search, contract information, is it specific just for your agency or throughout the entire enterprise Commonwealth?
Depends on, so that's I mentioned I'm an administrator. It really just depends on your security setup and your profile. So certain people have access to certain information. That's really just a decision that's just kind of made at the organizational level with the eVA team as to what, you know, what you're allowed to see and what you're not. Usually it's bound to your organization, I think, right, Lisa? And then some people like customers.
Yes, and I'll jump in here. I think our take on that is it's going to be bound to your organization, but to kind of take that a little further, and we talked about this when we did the eVA previews with the search, that search is crazy powerful even within your organization. It doesn't just search recs or just search a contract. are just search what we call an RFX or a sourcing event. You type it in, it pulls up, like, it breaks it into categories, and it's like, are you looking for a supplier? Are you looking for a PO? You look at it, it's wildly powerful, even within your organization. So we're very excited about search.
Yeah, so general rule to recap there is the data you see is usually bound to your organization.
Yeah, usually. I mean, there's always caveats and
Right.
special cases, but yes, it's typically you will be bound to your organization.
So we had a great, I guess, exchange in the chat. And then we also have a specific question about these new terms. So prefix PR seems to change to REQ for purchase requisitions, our PCO and EP also changing. And if so, to what? So one of the things that I did message back to Michelle specifically was that we do have new terminology. With a new platform, there are new terms that we are just going to need to embrace, as much as we've tried to transition those words and terms that you're familiar with and bring them forward into this new solution. We've done that where possible, but there's just going to be some new things we're going to have to learn. So what we're doing for you to help ease some of that pain of learning those new terms and understanding what they are is create a crosswalk of what you currently know it as and what you'll need to become familiar with it being called. So that will help you hopefully as a reference, but then as you go through the training and you see the material, hopefully is as much as you need, especially with some of the modules that you can play over and over again, you'll become more familiar with the terms. And when you get to that hands-on piece of that training, it will make more sense as you get into and dig into using the tools and going through the points and clicks. That is the expectation and our hope. But we apologize, with new things, there are new things to learn, and this is just going to be one piece of that.
And I'll jump in too. So what Mark showed you today, the rec, the line item going into a quick quote, issuing the quick quote. When we do further live demos, or when you get into training, and let's say Mark or John do RFP, the screens are going to look very similar. The buttons are going to be the same color. Things are going to be in the same spot. Like when you shop a catalog, screens are going to be very similar. Buttons are going to be in the same spot. Save is going to be this cut. You're going to notice a uniformity across the activities that you take, which we feel like are pretty convinced that your ability to learn is not going to be hampered as you spend time in the system by navigation. You're going to get real used to the way things look and how things flow. It's more about functionality and additional features and things like that versus, well, right now I'm in quick quote and it looks a certain way. And then I go to the email and it looks completely different. There's uniformity across the board here. So when we come in and we invite Mark and John and whoever else from CGI back to do additional demos, they're just going to introduce more functionality, and the look and feel is going to be very similar.
Perfect. So we also have a question about ad hocing approvers. So when you submit a requisition for approval, can you ad hoc approvers like you can in the current system? And then there was another similar question about, will end users still be set up with workflow approvers, or is that something the end user will have to set up? So I think we can kind of combine an answer for both of those.
John,
I can take that one. So for workflow, the goal that we're going for is it to be exactly the same as you have it today. We're taking basically a dump of what exists today and we're putting it in the new system. So everyone should see the same people approving the same types of transactions with the same rules. With ad hoc, it works a little bit different, but it definitely exists. Something that we can add into the workflow. Which is pretty cool. It's not quite the same as the way Ariba or Email works today, but it still gives you that same power to let someone take a look or add someone into the flow.
And just stay on for the next one too. So if a rec is fully approved prior to the sourcing event, will it need to go through approval process again after award info has been updated?
So at that point, you wouldn't have a supplier or know your price. So I don't know why you would submit a requisition at that point. They're kind of disconnected at that. And then if you have a solicitation, then you can end up creating a requisition later based on that price.
And kind of thinking through that business process a little bit more to give a little bit more perspective, when that requisition first comes in, you're asking for approval to purchase a goods or service. And like John said, you don't know the price or anything like that right now, or you don't know the process even that you're following. Is it going to be sole source? Are you issuing a quick quote? Is it going to be a sealed procurement? So it there'll be approvals that need to come out on the inside of that too, to make sure that you followed through the process, and also, dollar range approvals and other things that follow as well.
Great. So we also want to talk about, I'm sorry. Will you be able to search the new system with old PCOs and EP numbers? So this is going to be something that we've got another user group on the 26th talking about conversion of data. If you're not signed up for that, please do. And if we want to touch a little bit on that, that would be a great little plug for that next user group on the 26th. And then to answer this.
The short answer is yes.
Okay.
It will not be the same. So you'll still have an REQ number, for instance, for requisitions. But if you search by the PR number, you'll still get the requisition you had. It's just going to have a different REQ number.
Cool. That's a super answer, because that's a great question, because we're going to be, as Kim mentioned, we're doing a conversion discussion next week, 10 o'clock. You should have seen the invite. I didn't even have that question in my brain. I know we're good news is, transactions that are active are converting. That's the good news. But I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. How would I find something? So that's awesome. Good stuff. I learned something myself today.
And just so everyone is clear, we are going to incorporate all of these questions, even the ones we can't get to in the next 6 minutes, and make sure that the FAQ document that's posted on the Transition Newsroom is updated with all of the Q and the A that's associated with it.
And Kim,
yes.
just a note, I think this came into my head and I want to say it out loud. We are doing a conversion discussion next week, and Barb Lehman and I are basically going to lead a lot of that discussion, but I think it would be wise if we invite Lori or John or Mark, maybe all three of them, to that meeting. Just because questions like that, sometimes it's, you guys ask great questions. It's something I hadn't thought about. I'm looking at a matrix and I'm saying, well, this is definitely coming over, but you're right. It is a little bit new numbering scheme, and how that's, you guys will probably ask something next week that I'll go, I don't know, but having some CGI help there would be very good. I'm excited about that discussion next week.
And then there's some customization questions, customization of the homepage. It would be helpful, by role or division, because not everybody has the same needs or not equal. So what can we say about customization?
Yeah, I can touch there. So home pages are customizable. We will, as a rollout plan, have them assigned to different groups of people, usually based on job role. And then, like I mentioned, over time, those will be modified to, improve what they do. But there is not going to be, every single person doing their own homepage at day zero. The features will grow into that over time. But yeah, it'll be more. It won't be a single homepage. It really is job role focused, and that's something we'll work through here. Probably in early October is when we really start putting together those things.
Great.
And that goes back to some of the analysis that we've done earlier on in this project too, just to point out, you're doing transactions, we have access to that to see what you're doing and can kind of put you in groups that make sense for you for both your training purposes and then also the homepage.
Great.
And this gets back to what I talked about. It's the same thing with training. I mentioned with training, there's a feedback loop, continuous improvement. We're going to tweak, and that's going to be an ongoing thing. It's the same thing here. Our straight line path, just to double down on what Mark said, we got to get you on your feet. I need POs to go out the door. I want sourcing to get publicly posted. I need vendors responding. I need you to do the business of procurement, and I need you to do it as comfortably as possible. Day one, there are going to be some vanilla things, because we just got to get you stood up, and we got to get Commonwealth procurement running in this system. But again, after that, as Mark mentioned, there's a lot of cool things. But we want to be patient. We want to get you stood up, and then we're gonna we're going to have that ability to do some things for you.
So do our suppliers, when they're talking about sourcing, quick quotes, IFBs, RFPs, et cetera, do you have to select the suppliers to reply to your solicitation, or can you leave it blank so anyone can respond? And I think we've touched on that a little bit, along with the idea that the other question is about, you know, the notifications going out to your set list. So I
So-
think it's going to stay very similar. So go ahead and comment
So
on
keep
that.
in mind, I'm pretty sure Mark was either in development or system test.
Yeah.
He's in an environment that there's still work, there's work ongoing, right? So remember, go back to that life cycle where we're at. We're not production ready. You know, we're still developing. We don't even have user acceptance for the Commonwealth yet. That's not ready. We're not there yet. So the invite list, the public posting, think about what you have now. That's going to be there. Your supplier lists are going to build. You know, if a supplier who's not on the list goes and finds an opportunity on the public posting and they want to respond, they'll be able to click it and respond. It's similar. Mark had to do a couple of things today because we're not fully fleshed out yet. But I hope you saw the value, his ability to go from rec, to create the quick quote, to get it back to the rec, to get it submitted and approved. I hope you saw it, because again, what is the other thing he did? He blasted through the approvals, right? Well, you know, that's not reality. that you have the magic button that you just can blast through every approval you have. But you get I hope you got the idea. But again, that vendor stuff, it's what you got now. We're going to build the list for you. You got your SWAM stuff, and then things are going to be publicly posted. And then if I'm not on it as a supplier, I can respond and get on the list. So same functionality.
And you do not have to have a supplier on your list, but in reality, I don't know that we've ever done one where we've set one out given the size of the eVA supplier table that somebody does solicitation goes out with 0.
Yeah, our commodity matches are huge. We'll pull suppliers in every time we hit submit. So.
And we're going to do one final Q&A, and then the rest of these will get incorporated into the next version of the FAQ document. That FAQ document will be shared out with our user group community, as well as posted on the transition newsroom with that latest version, incorporating all questions and answers we've received to date. So there may be some combination of questions that we kind of morph in together into the document to make it.
And Kim, I know I'm going to take up more time, and I'm sorry. If you don't feel like your question has been answered, if you feel like you've asked something and you can't find it and you're like, I do not want you to think that this group, this team is not responding to you. Send it again. Send it to your account executive. They'll get it to us. If you know me in my email, send it to me. I'll make sure it gets answered. There is also on the transition page a place to send your question to. We are absolutely delighted to answer your questions. Please understand we're getting a lot of questions. We are posting them to the FAQ. That FAQ is getting large. I know it's getting tremendously large. But please, if you're like, I asked a question and I'm not getting a response, get it to us. Shoot us an email, shoot your AE an email. I promise you we'll follow up. So sorry, Kim, I just wanted to get
No,
that.
I think that actually kind of gives us a great place to wrap it up. So I want to thank everybody for attending today. This was probably one of the largest groups we've had attend. For those of you that might have had technical difficulty, or you hear from your colleagues that they did because of the VPN, that was an enterprise-wide issue. So that was out of control. But what we have in our control is our ability to record this, which we've done. And the playback is going to be pushed out through the user group. It will be loaded to the Knowledge Center. Will also be put on the transition newsroom off of the eVA website so that you can access the playback. And then we will update that FAQ document. I'll get that out as soon as possible. I'd like to hold myself to getting those updates out to you next week. So I'm going to go ahead and make that promise to the group, and just thank you for your continued engagement, the great questions. And to quote Mary Brown, she did put a little comment in here, a lot of the things that you're asking about, it shows your excitement, your curiosity, and, you know, maybe a little apprehension, but a lot of that is going to get addressed as we move into training. And we're so excited to be moving into that next phase and being able to provide that training information materials, both paper-based as well as, you know, module-based short video targeted training. So there's going to be lots of different ways that that information is going to get delivered. We look forward to that. I'd like to thank Mark and John for joining us today and providing the great demo and this sneak peek to help keep us even more excited as we transition. If you have questions, reach out to your account executive, reach out to our team, customer care, go through the transition newsroom. And I hope to see all of you, if not most of you, next week if you have interest in coming to the special user group about the data conversion. I'll make sure that those additional invites get added from our CGI partners there. And with that, I'm going to call this a wrap and see you guys next week. Thank you so much for joining us today.